Well, the Prime Minister and his ministers say the new NAFTA deal is a good one for Canadian aluminum workers and the industry, but they don't see it quite that way. The Aluminium Association of Canada says it's disappointed with the new trade deal. Jean Simard is the president of the association. He joins me from Montreal today. Mr. Simard, thanks for taking time to speak with me today. I know you think that overall the new trade deal is a good one for the Canadian economy and for Canadian industry, but help us understand why you're concerned about this deal and its effect on Canada's aluminum industry. What's your main concern about this?
Well, the main concern is that the original intent of the signing parties, and more so for Canada and the US, was to develop or enable the growth of the industry, both in the steel and aluminum sector around the automobile sector in the US. Which is the most important domain for export of aluminiums from Canada. What they had negotiated under the new USMCA was what we call a rule of origin that says basically that aluminium and steel used in car manufacturing have to reach a level of 70% regional content, which basically, at first glance, would mean that when you manufacture a car in North America from now on, 70% of the metal used, both in steel and aluminum, has to come from the region. So at first glance, it looks like a great opportunity. The problem is once you scratch the surface of it, you find that what it really means is that what you procure, what you buy as a car manufacturer has to meet this regional content by being fabricated here in North America. It does not mean that the metal from which it is fabricated has to come from one of the three countries. So this is when we came to the government, on both sides of the border, and said, listen, if what you really want to achieve is the growth of the aluminium and the steel sector, on the case of aluminium, we need to add a definition of what it means to originate from the region. And that's when we came up with the smelted and poured definition, as steel came with the melted and poured definition, which basically means it has to come from a regional source from the beginning, before being reprocessed.
Okay, so to be clear, the new language in the protocol says that in 7 years from the time of ratification, the new protections for steel and rules of origin will come into force 7 years from now. And then 3 years after that, so in 10 years, the parties will consider looking at the same rules possibly for aluminum if it serves the interests of all three parties. So to you, that open language on aluminum and looking at it someday for rules of origin content is what, basically useless as a guarantee?
Well, it's not a guarantee. It's an indication of the intention of the parties to sit down in 10 years from now and look at it once again. The problem with that is today, the signal to the market is if you want to produce or fabricate parts that go into automobiles, one of the choicest places to be is in Mexico. Why? Because Mexico is using foreign metal. They don't produce primary metal. They're a remelt country. So they use scrap and they use other products in aluminium that they buy all over the place, and a lot of them in China at a discounted price. They reprocess it and they serve it to the US market, competing against our US clients and our Canadian clients using our primary metal. Yeah, okay. So we can't compete. We can't compete against that.
We heard from Chrystia Freeland today three things: that Canada didn't hold out for the same guarantees on aluminum as we got for steel because we wanted a deal and we wanted it now. We wanted ratification. And she also suggests you should be happy with the knowledge that, as you've pointed out, 70% of auto content must be North American. She's suggesting that if there is transshipment of steel into Mexico, of aluminum into Mexico, then the Americans could lay tariffs against the Mexicans. Does that satisfy your concerns?
No. We think that Mexico has to set up a metal monitoring system like Canada has put in place as of September 1st to monitor the transits of metal into Mexico so that the two other countries can also monitor the transit of metals from Mexico to the North American market.
It doesn't sound like that's going to happen.
Well, we think that Mexico has made a commitment on May 17th, as Canada has made with the US through a public joint statement, to the effect that they would put in place a monitoring system to avoid transshipment and surges. Canada had made that commitment. Canada has delivered. We're waiting for Mexico to deliver, and we believe that both Canada and the US should put pressure on Mexico to deliver the goods.
Okay, so to be clear as we wrap up our time here, what is it you want now from the Canadian government or from other it's a big story in Ottawa today in the House of Commons. Do you want opposition parties to try and block this deal because of what's missing on aluminum, or do you want the deal to go ahead and see if you can work on improving the situation for aluminum after that?
Exactly. We want the deal to go ahead because it's in the best interest of Canada, of Quebec, and of our industry. And we want to work with elected officials and government officials in order to improve the situation for our industry, which is one of the largest contributors to exports to the United States.
All right, Jean Simard, always appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us your perspective today. It was good to talk to you.
Thank you.